What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Look at this nice and beautiful question on the board that we're going to be solving. And the question says, find the square root of 6 plus the square root of 2 all over the square root of 8 all raised to the power of 9. Well, our first step will be for us to break down 6. So we have the square root of 6 is same as 3 times 2 plus, this is the square root of 2 all over. Now the denominator will break 8 down. So this becomes the square root of 8 is same as 4 times 2. And this is raised to the power of 9. Our next step will be for us to split what we have here. So the square root of 3 times 2 is same as the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 plus the square root of 2 all over. Now the denominator will split. So this becomes the square root of 4 times the square root of 2 all raised to the power of 9. Our next step will be for us to factor out the square root of 2, since the square root of 2 is common on the numerator. So let's factor out the square root of 2. So the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 divide by the square root of 2. I'm going to be having the square root of 3. So square root of 3 plus, now the square root of 2 divide by the square root of 2, I'm going to be having 1. So this is what I have from factorizing the numerator all over. Now the denominator, the square root of 4 is 2 times the square root of 2. And this is raised to the power of 9. Now notice that the square root of 2 can cancel out the square root of 2, leaving behind the square root of 3 plus 1 all over 2. And this is raised to the power of 9. Our next step will be for us to use substitution by saying let this expression inside of the bracket, which is root 3 plus 1 all over 2, be equal to x. So take note that this expression be equal to x. So we are solving x. And what does the question requires us to find? It is to find x to the 9. So when we get x to the 9, that becomes the solution to our question. Now let's focus on what we have here. Our next step will be for us to cross multiply. And when I cross multiply, I'm going to be having the square root of 3 plus 1 to be equal to 2 times x becomes 2x. Now let's move 1 to the right hand side. So this becomes the square root of 3 equal to, I've already got 2x here. As 1 crosses to the right, it becomes minus 1. So I did this so I can be able to get rid of the square root. Let's move on to the next slide. So now, in order to get rid of this square root, we have to take the square of both sides. So I'm going to be taking the square of the left hand side. I'll also take the square of the right hand side. Now notice that the square can cancel out the square root, leaving behind 3 to be equal to, now on the right hand side, we're going to be expanding this. So this is 2x, and when we raise this to the power of 2, I'll be having 4x squared. Now, 2 times 2x times negative 1, I'm going to be having minus 4x. And then negative 1 squared is plus 1. Our next step will be for us to move every other thing to the left-hand side. So I have 3. As 1 crosses to the left, it becomes minus 1. As negative 4x crosses to the left, it becomes plus 4x. So this is equal to 4x squared. Now simplifying the left-hand side, we have 3 minus 1, which gives 2 plus 4x. And this is equal to 4x squared. Well, I'm going to be rearranging this such that I flip the positions. That means I'm going to be writing this, which is 4x squared, to be equal to, before writing this, which is write 4x first before plus 2. So it's still the same thing. I just flipped the positions, making the right-hand side be the left-hand side and making the left-hand side here to be the right-hand side. Now, our next step will be for us to take the square of both sides. So I'm going to be taking the square of the left-hand side. So square the left-hand side equal to, I'll do the same thing to the right-hand side. I have 4x plus 2. I'll take the square of the right-hand side. So now the square of the left-hand side will be, remember, this power here affects the 4 and it also affects the x squared. So 4 squared is 16. Then x squared to the power of 2. Remember the powers will multiply. Yes. So we have x to the 2 times 2, that's 4. Equal to, now let's expand this. I'm going to be having, so 4x squared is 16x squared. Remember, this power affects the 4. It also affects the x, leaving this result. So now 2 times 4x times 2 gives 16x. And then 2 squared is 4. Now let's divide through by 4. So I'm going to be dividing the left-hand side by 4. I'll divide this by 4. I'll divide this by 4. And I'll also divide this by 4. The reason why I'm dividing everything by 4 is so that I'll have 4x squared. So I'm interested in 4x squared. So let me just asterisk this because I'm going to be making use of it more often. So 16x to the 4th divided by 4, I'm going to be having 4x to the 4th equal to 16x squared divided by 4, I'll be having 4x squared, just like this, plus 16x divided by 4, I'll be having 4x, and then plus 1. Now, like I said, I'll be making use of this more often. 4x squared is equal to 4x plus 2. So since 4x squared is equal to this, I'm going to be putting it here. In place of 4x squared, I'll be writing this. So I have 4x to the 4th to be equal to, now instead of writing this, I write 4x plus 2. And then plus 4x plus 1. Now let's simplify what we have here. So we have 4x to the 4th to be equal to 4x plus 4x is actually 8x. Now 2 plus 1 is 3, so plus 3. Now our next step will be for us to square both sides. Remember, we are interested in having x to the 9. Once we have the result for x to the 9, then we've got our answer. So I'll continue to square this side so that I get something that looks like this. Let's continue on the next slide. So let's square both sides. So this is 4x to the fourth. I'm going to be squaring this equal to the right hand side. We have 8x plus 3. I'm also going to be squaring this. So now what is the square of 4x to the fourth? Remember, the power affects this and this. So the square of 4 is 16. And the square of x to the fourth is x to the 8th. This is equal to, now let's expand what we have here. So remember, this power affects 8x. So 8x all raised to the power of 2 gives 64x squared, right? Very good. So 2 times 8x times 3, I'm going to be having 48x. And then 3 squared is 9. Now, what I'm going to be doing here, like I said, we're going to be making use of 4x squared more often. Do you remember what 4x squared is? Which is our starred equation. It is 4x squared is equal to 4x plus 2. Well, this is our starred equation. Like I said, we're going to be making use of it. Now, this 64x squared, I'm going to write it such that it has 4x squared in it. So let's do that. So this is 16x to the 8th equal to, now 64 can be split into 16 times 4 and then x squared. So you see where this 4x squared comes in, right? Cool. Plus 48x and then plus 9. Now, wherever we see 4x squared, we're going to be substituting 4x plus 2. So this becomes 16x to the 8th equal to, I've got 16 here. Then in place of 4x squared, I'll be writing 4x plus 2, which is what we have here. Plus 48x and then plus 9. Our next step will be for us to open up this bracket. So we have 16x to the 8th to be equal to, now 16 times 4x is actually 64x plus 16 times 2, we have 32 plus, this is 48x and then plus 9. Now let's simplify the right hand side. So this is 16x to the 8th equal to, now 64x plus 48x, I'll be having 112x. And then 32 plus 9, I'll be having 41. Remember that our solution to our given question is x to the 9. That means I'm looking for x to the 9. I've already got x to the 8. So how do I make it 9? We can actually make this 9 by multiplying both sides by x. So this becomes 16x to the 8th times x equal to, I'll also multiply the right hand side by x. So x times 112x plus 41. Now 16x to the 8th times x gives 16x to the 9 equal to, now let's open up this bracket. X times 112x gives 112x squared plus x times 41 is 41x. Now remember, this is very useful to us in our solving. So we're going to be making 112 to have 4x squared in it. And how do we do that? We have 16x to the 9 to be equal to, now 112 can be split into 28 times 4. And then we have x squared. So you see, we've got 4x squared once again, plus 41x. Now, wherever we see 4x squared, we're going to be substituting this. So we have 16x to the 9 to be equal to, this is 28 times 4x squared is 4x plus 2. So I'll be writing 4x plus 2 and then plus 41x. Let's move on to the next slide. So now let's open up this bracket. We have 16x to the 9 to be equal to 28 times 4x. I'll be having 112x plus 28 times 2. I'll be having 56 plus 41x. Now let's simplify the right hand side by adding up like terms. So this becomes 16x to the 9 equal to, now 112x plus 41x is 153x, and then plus 56. Now remember, we're looking for x to the 9. That means I'm going to be dividing through by 16. So I'll divide the left hand side by 16, divide this by 16, divide this by 16. Now 16 can go off, so leaving behind x to the 9 to be equal to 153 all over 16 times x plus, we can actually break this one down. 8 can go into 56, so 56 divided by 8 is equal to 7. And 8 can also go into 16, so 16 divided by 8 is actually 2. So I have 7 over 2 here. Now recall that x from our substitution is equal to the square root of 3 plus 1 all over 2. So we're going to be putting the value, this x, yes, here in place of x. This value here in place of x. So let's do that. So we have x to the 9 to be equal to 153 over 16 times what we have here, the square root of 3 plus 1 all over 2, and then plus 7 over 2. Let's open up this bracket. So x to the 9 will be equal to, now 153 times the square root of 3 is 153 root 3 plus 153 times 1 is 153 all over the denominator. 16 times 2 is what? Is actually 32. Yeah. Plus 7 over 2. Well, we can take the LCM. The LCM of 32 and 2 is actually 32. So LCM 32. So 32 divided by 32 is 1 times what we have here is 153 root 3 plus 153 plus, now 32 divided by 2 is 16, and 16 times 7 is 112. So finally, our final answer will be x to the 9th equal to, we're going to be adding like terms here. So I have 153 root 3. Now 153 plus 112 is actually 265 all over the denominator 32. And this gives our final answer. Well, feel free to share your ideas in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video and have learned something from this video, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my upcoming videos. And like I always say, until next time, take care.